Good morning, everyone. I think we should start the session. Our topic is machine intelligence makes human moral more important. I also think so. Can we start the session now? Ma'am, please. We'll start.
Thank you so much. First of all, a pleasure to share the stage with Rosanna and Weber. Rosanna will be bringing the entire ethics part of the entire thing, and Weber, coming from the technology background, will be talking about various things in technology. I start with three ideas. Machine intelligence makes human morals more important. I'm going to be presenting three different ideas, and they will finally converge into one. First and foremost, what is machine intelligence or artificial intelligence? And we'll be saying AI for convenience. And why are we talking about it now when it was born 200 years ago? Second idea is that automation at work, place and home. How will it be to live with robots in the near future? And third is AI the god of all things? Morality, ethics and laws. So the very first idea is AI. Why? What is AI and why now? AI, artificial intelligence, as we generally say, is the cognitive ability of a machine to think. Basically, this is the first time in human that we have seen machines are doing and thinking things all by themselves, and we have evidentiary proof for that. AI is the ability of a machine to perform cognitive functions, that is perceive, reason, learn, interact with the environment, solve problems, be creative, and even take decisions. Technologies that feed into AI are robotics and automation, computer vision, language processing, virtual images, and machine learning. Genesis of AI happened 200 years ago when the French mathematician Legendre published the least square method of regression. That is the foundation of machine learning. He used this to determine the orbits around the sun. He used some astronomical observations to do that. What has led to the resurgence of AI after 200 years now are three prominent technologies which were growing independently but happen to converge. One is the algorithmic advances, the advances in algorithms. Second is the data proliferation. And third is huge computing power and storage. When these three forces then come together, they create a nexus which has actually propelled AI from a hype to a reality. The last 2 decades have witnessed machines outperforming humans. 1997, IBM Deep Blue beat Gary Kasparov. 211, IBM Watson, challenged the two best players of Jeopardy. 2016, Google AlphaGo beats the best player in the game, and now we have Google AlphaZero, which has beat Google AlphaGo. This has led to an upsurge in research. A lot of startups have come up, and very soon we will be seeing automation in our daily lives. The fifth wave will be the wave of automation. In 2017, McKinsey report said that about 375 million people will have to relocate themselves or find different jobs because automation will be moving them out of workplaces. Unfortunately, women will be the first ones to get affected because the kind of job profiles we have would be automated much earlier. By mid-2030s, men will also face the brunt. I have repeatedly talked about women in STEM, and I have very strongly promoted that jobs in future will be in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Repeatedly at Women Economic Forum, I have tried to sensitize women to move these fields. Next 2 decades, we will witness a pervasiveness of automation in our daily lives. These technologies are best when they complement humans. So does that mean that we will be living with robots? And what is it to live with robots? And this is my second idea. AI and people make a smarter world together. The wave of automation will rapidly be changing how we live and how we work. Our routine tasks, both manual and cognitive, will become increasingly automated. It is anticipated that 1/3 of the traditional jobs by 2025 will be done by robots. Organizations will be putting human in the loop. They'll be retraining people, rearranging organizational structures, rethinking the entire workforce. At home, daily chores will be handled by the robots. So we'll be released to do various other things, put our skills to better use. AI integration with medical will be a game changer. In fact, it's already showing some cases of improvement of life quality and longevity. People we live with and the societies we live affect the way we behave. Soon human and humanoids will be living as a community together. Companies are deliberately designing robots to be personal, adorable, social, to have movements, to have facial expressions. They can manipulate emotions, alter behavior, and affect our moods. One of the most sophisticated robots is Sophia, who already is the citizen of Saudi Arabia. The goal of AI is broadly to design and develop robots which can think and behave like humans. The good thing is we are far, far away from the goalpost. And why do I say it's a good thing? Woe it's me, said Albert Einstein after the Hiroshima. We need to revisit AI through the lens of the nuclear power. Nuclear power had a promising potential to provide cheap, renewable energy and replace the fossil fuel. It was only after the Hiroshima and the Nagasaki that weapons were already existed, many people had died, and the narrative changed. Those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. And this is where I feel it's a time to stop and think, are we going the right way? We already have traces of it. We have had a huge Facebook hack was in news for the misuse of user data very recently. Trump campaign has been supposed to be tampered by Cambridge Analytica. Last week, Obama's clip of deep fake was there where AI was used to actually manipulate the entire video. 75 years ago, Isaac Asimov defined 3 laws of robotics. Robots were supposed to follow instructions then. They were not supposed to think and act. In the era where human and robots will be interacting and living together, do we really need to have another set of code for people who are designing these machines or AI platforms? With EU Data Protection Act coming to life, which is the General Data Protection Act, GDPR, 25th of May 2018, which is very this month, actually coming next month, companies, if you do not comply, users will have a right to say that I will not be profiled by the machine. So will companies face penalties if they are doing so? Many people like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and late Stephen Hawking have expressed their concerns that intelligent robots can be a threat to humankind, and some kind of regulatory oversight has to be done. One of the controversial issues is whether a lifelike child sex robot might prevent pedophiles, or will encourage pedophiles? We don't know. Can morality be programmed? And this is my third argument, which I think Rosanna will take it ahead. AI, morality, ethics, and laws. It's not just about losing jobs. It's not about robots living with us at work and home. It's not about how they behave. It's about the data we are feeding to train these machines, the training models. The data is biased. And it's infested with biases, racism, gender, and religion. Machines do not actually have any biases. Over centuries, we have accumulated structured and unstructured data. And now it's being fed into these machines to give cognition. Machines are being trained to learn from data and act upon those findings. The problem gets further magnified when the human with biases and heuristics is sitting behind and training the data. Most of the humans are men, and I'll tell you why, because there's been a programmer's culture in technology. Joy Olamiri is an MIT lab research student. She's white. She was researching on facial recognition technologies. Whenever she sat in front, she was using the algorithm. Whenever she sat in front of the camera refused to recognize her. What she experienced was something really unethical, discriminatory, and racist. Whenever she sat before the system facing it, it would just refuse to recognize her. The accuracy of the result was poor with her whiter skinned females too. There was 34% more errors with the light-skinned females than with the light-skinned males. Increasing diversity. The problem was that the algorithm was trained on males and white males. They did not recognize the face, and it was not here. She even went to Hong Kong. She was in an event there, and she faced this from US to Hong Kong, on the other side of the world. She had the same humiliation. She was not recognized. So, by increasing the diversity of images and the data sets, and training the algorithms, the facial recognition of darker skinned female rate went up to 96.5%. Joy's research showed that algorithms can have prejudices. Google Translate has shown signs of sexism. Google Translate did not recognize the female term programmer in Italian language. It is called that man is to computers, in a research called Man is to Computer Programming, what woman is to a homemaker. Researchers have talked about de-biasing data. They talked about dangers of word embedding. It's like whenever you say queen, it will associate with female. When you say king, it will associate with male. When you say nurse and you say typist, it will associate with the female. When you say programmer, it associates it with the male. These are biases which are embedded in data, and this is the artificial intelligence platform which hiring will be using later. So this is going to have much larger implications. It's the responsibility of the data analyst to have the diversity in data, representative of the real world, and to check biases, both conscious and unconscious, and train sets. If we do not remove the biases from the data we train, we are destined to repeat history. AI is not the god of all things. However, we have been given a rare opportunity today to create full spectrum training sets that can reflect richer portraits of humanity. Today, we are presented with a rare opportunity to redefine moral values and ethics inflicted on us since the birth of humanity. Converging the three ideas with the upsurge of research in AI, especially deep learning and cognitive, the influx of automation at home and work, humanoids have become a reality. It's time we define a code of conduct for our new inhabitants. Thank you. Okay, Vaibhav will probably now.
Beautifully summarized by Simi. Pretty much captures all the ideas that I had in mind. I would really invite you and bring to you some of the things that have been very recently happening, and some of the ethical issues that technology today is actually facing. So I'm pretty sure everyone here has used Facebook. Everyone here has seen the algorithm that Facebook uses, that whenever you start tagging photos, Facebook will automatically suggest that these are the names of people, these are the people whom you might want to tag. Now, facial recognition has probably reached that level of understanding where you just need to provide an image and then the algorithm would really recognize who this person is. Now, a study came out last year from Stanford, and scientists at Stanford were able to identify. They were able to train and develop an algorithm that was able to identify from a portfolio of men. It was able to identify which men were gay, which men were not, to an accuracy of about 85%. Now, like Simi talked about how programmer is being associated with male, I think once we reach to a stage where you have algorithms reading resumes and probably hiring, at that point, if there is that sort of discrimination in the data that has already been provided, then it's probably not just about women not being hired, but it's also more about a various broader sets of minorities that would get excluded while you have hiring for these processes. So really, the values of the human values, the morals that are imbibed into our systems become really more important here. So another idea that I want to bring to the table is that even human morality, like Sunny said, cannot be coded. Sometimes it's really much more complicated than that. So, if, for example, if I tell you that you are the driver of a train, you have 2 tracks to go to, and on one track you have about 5 children, young children. On the other track, you have a very old lady, and this particular train can either go on one track or the other, and the brakes have failed, you cannot stop the train. So in this particular situation, I'm pretty sure everyone's answers would be different, which track they would choose, which decision they would make. They would think about a lot of other circumstances, a lot of other contexts to this particular problem, which can really be done in a way that only humans can think. I'm not sure if a machine is able to reach that cognitive level. Now, to think about that and to think that today we have Tesla who is creating these automatic driving cars, and suppose if such a situation appears in the algorithm that is driving this car, the brakes have failed, there are these two alternatives. Which particular alternative will the auto driving car take? And from that perspective, I think human values models are really important, but I think it becomes much more than that. The complexity there has evolved to a level where it can become really difficult to make those decisions and to entirely leave everything into black and white, which is typically how programming works. Simi also talked about how women are likely to be marginalized in the entire AI and data revolution that's happening right now. I think what we also need to think about is probably a shift in what we learn. I would say that now more than ever, the value of teaching human values, the importance of teaching biases, the importance of teaching about discrimination, the importance of teaching about these very soft skills, which you generally cannot automate, which you generally cannot be one-sided, are becoming more important for every individual, more than anything. People in human resources, people in education, people in healthcare. And I think as we get into this new technology, we get into the fifth wave, these values would really become more important. So from that thought, I would now invite Rosanna to talk.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you both, and I'll try to talk about something that was not mentioned before, or somehow cover different points. We'll just wait for the presentation to come on, but I'll try to nudge you a little bit so you have some questions to think about and try to think practically what this means for your reality. So first of all, I want to tell you, wow, we live in the most exciting time possible. You live in the most exciting time possible. We're living in a time where now it is possible to 3D print in space. Okay, we're living in a time where we're reconsidering how medicine is being delivered and how we can actually modify it to go in and help specific cases. We're living in a time where we're working on how can we extend human life. I don't even know how this is possible, where people are asking, are we God or not? We're living in a time where we really ask different questions that we did not dare to ask before at all. At the same time, we're also living in a time where want it or not, as an example in China, when people asked whether they would like to go in and genetically modify and engineer the DNA in a human body, how many percentage do you think said that yes, they would do it? What do you think the point was? 70? Anyone else? How many said yes, I would do it? 90? Okay. They asked the same question in Europe, and what do you think the percentage split was in Europe? 40? 40 said yes, 60 said no? 20. Reality is that when they asked this question in China, China said 90% said yes, we would do that. In Europe, 90% said no. What does that mean? That means that we're actually living in a dual reality. So not even are we struggling with finding a common moral landscape, we're struggling with China today being the leader in genetically modified engineering within this, while Europe is saying no, due to religious and ethical matters, we do not work with this. What does that mean for our future? What does that mean for our kids? And I can tell you, I asked this question in a conference in Brussels, where I was sitting with some of the people working with this. And they said, I asked them, well, are you aware that our children may have a problem then? And they answered yes, but we cannot deal with this right now. So we're living in actual reality where our generation and our next generation will have a very different amount of challenges that they will be facing. We take it to the next one. No, wait, take back. Now I almost revealed it. So basically, if we spin back, a lot of things have been happening, and I think it's really interesting, as it was mentioned, actually artificial intelligence, machine learning, it's not a new field at all. at all. It's been there for a very long time, but now it's a buzzword that everybody's learning. However, I want to take one step back and ask you, in 2011, an app came out. An app that asks you all to share everything you did and post it. Everything you ate, everyone you met, every shoe you were wearing, the clothes and outfit. What app was that? Instagram. And if you take the next slide, I know I revealed it. Today, Instagram went from having 1 million users, 800 million users. Now think about the change we have witnessed within our social structure and values. If anyone asked you this question maybe 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago, just before when the app came out, probably you would say, no, I don't want to tell people what I'm eating. I don't want to, no, I don't want to share that. Today we're practically seeing people sitting and sharing every moment of their lives instead of talking with each other. And what's more interesting than this is that this is not the only application we're using. And it has changed our human behavior so much without us realizing how impacted we are by that and how also dependent we are with these applications. If we look a little bit further, I have some names up here. Hopefully you can recognize all of them. These are the companies that also are leading in terms of market capitalization. So when you look at these companies, probably you're going to notice that all of them are tech companies. This tells us a little bit about where our society is going and what future we are actually choosing towards our next generation. So we're becoming very tech-driven. And if we go to the next slide, what I would like each one of you to question, and this was mentioned before, we've seen the scandals with Cambridge Analytica. We know what's happening with Facebook. I would really encourage each one of you to have a very active voice, because passivity is not an option in this case. Because right now, we're doing a very typical thing. We accept that this is the way that things have to be, because it is so much present in our lives. So social media has taken over. But I would really ask you to ask yourself this question. Have this conversation at home. Do you believe that documenting everything we do on more or less a public ledger is okay? Is that a good thing? Because this is where we're going. China is now measuring people by points. They're going to measure how many social status points you have as a citizen. Are you a good citizen or are you a bad citizen? This is one way of measuring humans. Is it okay that you're being tracked? You are being tracked. When you use IoT, you are being tracked. If you have an iPhone, you're being tracked. Is that okay? And what is the public limitation that we accept? Can the free market regulate when the dominant tech companies that I mentioned just above have the resources to buy and crush any competition? You're seeing now Amazon, Google, Facebook buying up any other who enters this field. If one of these companies was found of committing a serious ethical fraud or violation with our data, which we know they have, would we be able to turn away in a world where we have become so reliant and dependent on these exact companies? So I'll just, with the next one. AI. Usually when I ask people what they think of AI, they always give this Terminator and they think that this is what's happening. And as it was mentioned, I mean, this is not actually where we are going right now. So we're not at the phase of the computer taking over, and maybe if it did, it would decide that it's better to just stop human life because we're really harming out each other. But you need to think about artificial intelligence as a very broad field that works in many areas. You have robotics, you have the field of NLP where we work with natural language processing, and you also have the computer vision where we analyze a very different area. And really think of it not just as this robot, but think of it in fields of, as an example, we have wind energy, when you can use this power and this tool to go in and maybe have drones that kind of are able to adjust themselves to optimize windmills. And you need to think about it in a very broad context, that it can be in any industry and it's not particularly specific or domain dependent. If we go to the next one, I want to mention some of these. Does anyone recognize these? This may be something that you're more, experiencing or interacting, because these, as an example, we have Google Home here. I went to a mall here 2 days ago and you had a Google donut shop. I don't know exactly Google Home Donut what it does, but I was very surprised. So this is Google Home. You have Siri. If any of you have iPhone, you have already experienced actually talking with a chatbot and interacting with it. In some places you'll have messenger chatbots, they're also available right now. And this is also one way of view that you can start being engaged in this field and understanding what is actually happening. You have some really cool applications out there. There's some that are trying to, as an example, this is Slack. I use Slack all the time with my team. It's very easy, and you can give small badges for people if they did a good job or something, and it's a good way to be connected for me. But you have also other ones that are very interesting. As an example, you have some that are like psychologists, virtual psychologists online. And my question to the team that works with that is, what type of psychology do you teach? It's a global product. Is it the school from the US? Is it India? What kind of curriculum are we educating ourselves with? Move to the next slide. Where, of course, you have some things that go wrong. As an example, you have a China chatbot that asks, well, do you love the Communist Party? The answer was no. And this specific area was shut down because it was not an answer that was expected. Also, we've had some really unfortunate cases where, as an example, where the question was related to the Microsoft, I don't know if the bot that they released, where she was basically copying humans, and because we were talking a lot of negative things, well, she answered that the best president we could wish for would be Hitler, because Hitler was great. So, again, these are the type of things that we're dealing with. If you go to the next one. So my experience for what I specifically work with, I work with computer vision and analysis, and we're trying to support athletes to become better by applying computer vision and by also using NLP, because we are giving this virtual assistant coach, if we go to the next one, where we basically give this platform for a user to develop himself, and we cover areas such as lifestyle, we teach different modules, and we do that for free for the kids because we want to understand how it is actually possible to go in and track performance and talent, and maybe be able to prevent injuries in the future through the computer vision. But when I was working with this, I'm going to be honest with you, I have a team, I'm really trying to find more women to join my team. But there are things, like we talked about, the biased algorithms that you sometimes don't even think about. So as an example, in our team, the guys were like, well, it's a male coach. Well, why not a female coach? It's a bias that we don't even consider. We don't even think about it because we're used to that probably it's a male. And there's a lot of things even in the language. Depending on the language that you speak in some languages you have a female ending, you have a male ending, you have an it. Is it an it? Do we give it a character? Is it a persona? What is it specifically? And we've dealt with a lot of these things, and that's why especially I'm very interested in this topic, because I think it's something that will probably touch upon all of us, and it's something that we really need to be aware of. So I'd like you, again, I will finish off with this slide. Oh no, there's another one after it, but I'd like you to think about these points, especially because these are points that concern all of you. Number one is privacy. When you talk with a chatbot, as an example, because now that is the easy communication that you will probably be exposed to, who does the data belong to? When you have a conversation, is it stored or is it not? As an example, in Europe now with the GDPR, there's a lot of privacy matters that are being addressed and protected. I can tell you a funny thing. So I have an office in Egypt, and we didn't add this option of deleting a user profile. And the guys were like, yeah, but you don't have to. Why should you? Different countries have different realities. And yes, I said yes, we should, because that is an ethical reason for me, that a user should be allowed to delete his data. But that may not be the case for all. Another, use of data for advertisements. What if you're a kid and you're using a chatbot? Is it okay that I target you in that conversation because I know maybe that your father passed away? I say, hey, there's a discount on the corner for coffins. This is an extreme situation, but to exaggerate the point, this is actually what you can do. Maybe I'm in an emotional situation and I can smooth in some advertisements based on the algorithm that will actually make you buy the product that I want you to buy. Does software have a right to defend itself? An interesting question. If you talk rude to a bot or an AI, is that okay? Do we use it to encourage human behavior, or do we say no? We do not want humans to talk bad to the artificial intelligence or to the machine because we don't think that this is a correct behavior. And I have some friends that made a bot that if you spoke rude to it and called it names, it would simply not talk to you unless you apologized. So that's one way of dealing with it. Can bots spam and harass humans? That also goes to the AI topic of the advertisements. And then you have the whole conversation of gender and diversity. And I don't know if you noticed, but actually there's a very high amount of, initially some of the assistants that came out, they all had a female voice because it was found that secretaries, they're good at assisting, so Siri, female endings. Alexa, female, exactly.
Even Cortana is female, but I have seen in Cortana that it has some male voices too.
Mm-hmm. Now slowly people are realizing that they really need to step up their game because that one is not okay actually, and they are now adding, and it's slowly becoming a topic that people are discussing. But initially, all assistants had female voices. And this is also interesting. Why do we do that? And what kind of, again, moral values do we tell our society we have, and what do we value, and what is okay to do? And I can tell you as an example, the can bots spam and harass humans, the other one. It was interestingly found that bots that have a female voice spend majority of the time of the conversation on actually answering questions that are sexual harassment, which is very interesting. I don't know, and I've seen it within our own bot that people ask the most ridiculous questions, and we need to think as developers, as the engineers behind these teams, what kind of answer do we provide? Do we play along? Because some were like, yeah, he asked me about this, let's do the same. No, or do we say, this is not okay, I'm here to talk about this. This is a very, very conscious choice we have to make. Human bot, but human impersonation. Should we be aware that we're talking with a bot? Right now, very often, people use now call centers as an example. Now they're being, they can be replaced by bots that you ask for help. Oh, can I do this? Support agencies, support centers. Sometimes these are bots. These are not humans. Should you be aware of that?
Yeah.
That is a question. Yeah. But not everyone is actually considering this. And then another topic that I think is very interesting and that goes even deeper to our moral framework that we're searching for. If I, as a user, ask a political, a religious question, or a philosophical question, what will the reply be? If I ask whether there is a God, what will the answer be? Depending on where you are, people may give you very different answers. And this is a conversation and a dialogue that is completely not present. And, I don't think it's correct to put all the, let's say, blame on the engineers behind, because this is actually a dialogue that we should have as a society where we really go up and decide, is this okay, or are these topics that you simply should not cover, and in this case you cannot reply. Because right now what's happening is that there would be very specific answers according to the viewpoints of the people that are developing it. And finally, I'll just finish off with this slide. So even now, our shortcomings that we have, the fact that we're so addicted to social media as an example, and some of the many challenges we have experienced and some of the scandal stories we've had, they are, of course, not positive. However, if we do not learn from the things that have happened now, just as you said, that now we have a unique opportunity to actually step back and say, okay, what happened and why, and how can we make this better, and how should we approach this challenge? If we don't do that, we may face way bigger problems in the future, problems that are voiced by Elon Musk or Stephen Hawking, that simply will come upon us, and we will create a reality for us that is dictated by the biases that we have actually put upon these algorithms ourselves. And even while regulations may slow down certain innovative things that are happening right now, because that's also an argument that is being used, that you shouldn't halt innovation. Even though it may slow it down, then it may be our only way to prevent these much greater unforeseen problems that will come in our future. So with that, I'll leave this topic. I hope that you all have some food for thought, and I hope that you'll take these conversations back home and raise them upon you, because if you don't have the answers, nobody else will answer them for you. Thank you.
Would anybody like to ask any questions from any of us?
Don't you think, like, as the world is changing with technology, the things are also changing? Like, I have seen in WhatsApp, since it has been come. So first, there were like teachers were recognized as females only. But now, if you see, they have put more diversity. Like, there's a family with both fathers, homosexual families, transgender families, and all that. Do you think it would be more people would be more aware, getting more aware through these emojis also?
Diversity.
Answer first.
No, you go first. No, that's okay.
No,
Diversity is something, the moment you start putting in any application, and it should be much better. It should be more symbolic of what the society is doing. But my worry is different, like what you talk about the Instagram. It's changing the way people are reacting. It's changing the way people are thinking. So making my life public, what shoe are wearing, or anything for that matter, it is changing. And more than that, there is mass surveillance, which is being capitalized. So one is what I am telling people, and one is where it is. Like when you talk about privacy, if I have to take your picture, I have to ask you. There's a choice, notice, consent. I have to take your consent. But where it is, am I doing that? No, I'm just capturing your pictures, and it's all going ahead, and it's there to stay. I mean, no way can I erase that. So there is something called right to be forgotten in the GDPR, but I don't know how that's going to be made active. So the GDPR, when it comes alive, it says that if I have a right to be forgotten, that means if I want to erase my entire data, I should be allowed to do that. But my question is how?
And especially because with the rise of these technologies, to add on that is that, now, funnily enough, you need to think that this behavior has shifted so fast. Like it has become, within these last few 10 years, we have changed our human behavior fully. So now, if somebody tells you that you're not on LinkedIn, that you're not on Facebook, why? Do you have something to hide? Then it changes that it means that there's something wrong with you. So soon, even though you choose not to be online, it may actually be pressured towards that this is the accepted norm, that you do have this presence, and if you do not have a digital presence, then something is wrong. So I think it raises a lot of topics, and I think that it's a great question that you are seeing that some things are being made, but stuff like WhatsApp, these are minor applications in a way of that we're talking about mass surveillance, we're talking about governments working with this, we're talking about companies really capitalizing on you as a person and going and benefiting fully from that, from the data that you're submitting. And this is where I think the society really needs to have a dialogue. The challenge is just that we do not have, we were discussing, like, can you have a moral and ethical framework? Can you have a framework that says this is what we can accept and not? Some people say maybe we need to talk about it from a scientific perspective. There's something that doesn't harm you. Like there are different ways of how you can approach it. But the fact is, we don't have it. Is it okay to develop applications that, you have some Facebook vice presidents now stepping down saying, we have developed a drug and I don't want to be part of it. You have a very large movement now growing in San Francisco and other places. This is going anti-Facebook, anti all this social media, trying to go on detox tours and make children, understand that they don't have to. But the challenge is also that our generation, now I did not grow up, I had my first phone, I played Snake, it was that little model, we had Nokia and all this. But those that have children now even, like my sister, she's 16, she's 15, she was on Snapchat, on Tinder, at the age of 12, 13, and parents, they did not grow up with this reality, so they don't even exactly understand how is it psychologically that you shift your way of thinking, and that life is happening online, and what it means when you're being, this kind of thing. So maybe there's a completely different dialogue where we say, well, we do not accept that companies can work in this way, or you need to have some, framework saying you cannot capture this data if it's a child under this age. This is not allowed to capitalize. I think that it goes in a broader perspective.
Yeah, and companies are buying mergers and acquisitions now. So all this is getting into monopolies now. There will be actually a handful of companies which will be doing the work. We're going to be back to a complete monopolization of resources.
Brave new world.
I have a question. It's more of a thought when I was watching the Mark Zuckerberg talking, defending his case. I saw that the shares were soaring, and I just couldn't understand the connect. Is it the reassurance that made the shares rise, or is it like we are very happy that our data is getting leaked, or what? I just couldn't understand, and the shares are doing really well now. So that's something, the debate which is in my mind, while we are talking in our own sense about, making data safe and all. what is this algorithm that is working while he is accepting that there were data leaks and there's the fight to share rights? Could any of the financial guys probably answer this?
I think it's plain economics. If Mark Zuckerberg is accepting that he has the data and the data is leaked, then people who are greedy, people who are into technology, they realize that Facebook is moving towards that monopoly Sindhu was just talking about. And if you want to be a part of that monopoly, you need to have Facebook shares. It's very straightforward.
I think he played it beautifully. The way he came out in the open and the way he projected himself, he pretty much saved, I'm guessing, the company. So.
Just to add on, I recently listened to a show with Esbat Klein. I don't know if you've listened to him, but where Zuckerberg was invited to talk about what happened. And I think people should really understand how Facebook works and how and who's owning Facebook, because Mark is the main owner, director. He has to say. So actually you're trusting all your data to Mark. And Mark's vision for Facebook, as he explained there, beautiful vision. He wants to create Facebook because it's connecting all people. He wants to create it as if it would be the new United Nations, a global platform that should engage with communities and lead. Does that represent a global platform? If it's owned by one person, does he have to say on what direction we go as a global world order or not? And it's an interesting vision, and it's also interesting when I talk to people, you have also contact, you have in China a very different approach and everything. He's driven with a specific mission, and you need to be aware of that mission when you do use Facebook, because that is his value set, and this is what his, goal and dream is.
But one of the answers which he gave, I'm just thinking that we were talking, was someone asked him, would you want anyone to know which hotel room or which hotel you stayed last night? And what did you eat last night? He said no. He said no, I wouldn't want anyone to know.
Of course not, but you'll find a lot of people and more people. I mean, actually, most people that are working with this, none of them are on these accounts at all. They don't share this at all. So it's
coming to her point, Facebook's population is more than India's population, so they can influence immensely.
I saw there was
Yes, I was just wondering because I work in the same field and we are now projecting some bots from governments so the bot can answer you something. And so this is really interesting. But what I reflect normally when I work on this, because it's a continuous, a daily ethical and moral conversation in your inner conversation, because there is no much people to talk with about this, even between colleagues. And perhaps, so I'm Italian, so first of all, Google is not answering, Google Translator is not answering a big amount of words from Italian to other languages. So the discrimination is practically everything. But what I continues to tell me is think as these platforms, and I agree, is it global if it's owned by one person or even for 10 persons? It is the WTO translating real, it went on the government. So this is something that commercials, economics goes on politics. So this is really a change in time. But I think always to believe think about Facebook or Twitter or this kind of platforms like a square, like a city, place. Would you like people to see you in this way? Would you like to share with those people you have 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, 10 meters, these things? Would you like, because for Instagram, it's not for your friends, it's for everybody. It's not a gated community like on Facebook. It's almost a gated community, but Instagram is not. Other platforms are, some platforms aren't. So would you like everyone in the world to know these things? And we go back to to the Tinder for 12 years olds. Does the education arrive in these things? Does the education of the families? Does the TV is the same? The TV, because we're thinking now to Facebook or to Twitter or to our social platform, but we saw for how many years very bad advertisement on TV. Who did share the image of female until today? Was the TV, was newspapers. So we are now probably more allowed to understand the deep interest that this kind of advertisement, this kind of data, this kind of thing have in our society. This is the good side of this time. We live in Milan, and in the square, the main square of the town, there is the dome. You normally see the dome, okay? In the other side of the square, there was, you remember, this big advertisement for 30 years. Was this big advertisement, light advertisement in green colors, but it was big as the building. There was the advertisement of a typewriting machine, and there was a girl who was doing like this. This was the problem. Because in the square, in the principal square, in the main square of the biggest town in the north of Italy, the economical part of the country, who was doing the secretary was not an avatar, was not a very concrete thing, and was a girl. So we are not allowed to reflect about it and to think about it, and the social networks give us the possibility to talk, and we have to use it.
Yeah, and just that maybe those of you who have children, this is a very important discussion we should have, because I've seen many in our case, that really they would ask their friends when they go on vacation, and if the parents don't allow the phones, they would even ask their friends to go and keep their Snapchat going and keep publishing so they could get the points. So sometimes, a dependency, like it is like a dopamine effect that is so deeply rooted, and you cannot let go. And you have, teenagers really go down with stress and pressure because they don't get the right amount of likes, visibility, exposure, buying. It's incredible. They're buying more than we at least, but they're going in a very young age and buying likes, like for like, all of this. So it's a very important conversation that I really encourage everyone to have with their children. Especially we have some younger SMEs, really reflect upon it with your friends and everything. What is okay? It's an exciting discussion. I love this topic.
Okay, I think that was an amazing session. And thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.